I would like to break out here. Meadowlark Media purchased over the weekend something that we've never had around here, a wheel of issues that is exclusively music related. We have a different wheel from the normal fake ass wheel, and it is the wheel of musical issues. And what we have on it, look at Roy rubbing his hands together. He's very excited.
Yeah, we got two wheels now. Yes.
Yeah, we got two wheels. Meadowlark Media really broke the bank. And on this wheel is the Eagles concert Mike Ryan went to with his father. On this wheel is the Elton John concert that he went to with the show's grandfather, Greg Cody. On the wheel is Jack White, able to name even the most obscure of Beatles songs off of a couple of notes, which I did not feel could be done. And our musical is on the wheel. And also old music killing new music is on the wheel. So go ahead and spin the wheel of issues. I don't have my glasses, Mike. You're going to have to tell me where this lands.
It sounds just like the other wheel.
It's a newer wheel. It's new wheel 2.0.
It looks different.
Yeah, it does look different. It landed
What does
on.
it look like?
It landed on. Is old music killing new music?
Roy?
I believe it is.
Yeah. There is actually a fascinating article in The Atlantic that is titled "Is Old Music Killing New Music?" And it is. It absolutely is
Told you
killing.
so.
70% of the U.S. music market is older songs. In fact, new music accounts for less than 5% of all streams. And we try to analyze, why is this? Was it the lockdown where pop culture froze? And you have these streaming services that are making radio stations less and less vital. And radio stations are where a lot of new music gets broken. And meanwhile, you have these people on their music platforms that have algorithms that just reinforce what they already like. So it's just spoon feeding people stuff that they know that they like, which is generally older stuff. So the marketplace right now, including the music industry too, where the business sector is getting these older catalogs because that's where the money is at right now because of how you can integrate some of these songs into commercial.
Is that why
commercial
Springsteen sold for $500 million? The Boss is for sale, $500 million for the Springsteen catalog.
What are we calling old? Like pre
outside of
2012?
18 months. New music is anything that was released in the last 18 months,
Interesting.
according to this article.
Well, is that there's more old music than new music?
Yeah, that's
right?
always been the case. But the 5% of new music accounting for 5% of the top streams, that's just 3 years ago, it was 10%. So it's already been cut by half. And you see, this article mentions how the Grammy ratings, it's not just cord cutters or everything that's going on in the country. 40 million people used to watch the Grammys, and that number dwindled all the way down to 8. People don't. The Grammys is an annual celebration on music that is happening right there. And if you watch the Grammys now, there's a leaning on more nostalgia acts, and it's funny because even during the lockdown, Fleetwood Mac had a big comeback because of the TikTok.
But young people all the time are discovering the Missy Elliott's and a whole bunch of music that they had no idea. That not only that, they're discovering that their people are sampling music that they did not know was from another time. So young people, you're introducing old music to a whole new generation. I'd make the argument that old music is better than new music, but I'm an old fogey. That's exactly the argument I would make.
Right. Every old person would say that. But also, you're right, sampling as a TikTok genre is a thing. Hey, look at where this song came from. But I actually think you made the point, Mike, that radio is what pops these things. I think it's social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels. And as someone who is on the TikTok platform, there is a lot of old music that, Earth, Wind, and Fire's September is one of the most popular songs on TikTok. And so that kind of crowds out the space for newer songs. Because I learned of a lot of songs during the pandemic because I was on TikTok all the time. And so that's where those songs pop. And if they're even there, it's going to nostalgia music, then where the hell is the new music going to find oxygen?
So demo versions of tracks that would be considered pop tracks pop on TikTok, and then labels start getting into motion and say, how do we make this whole song sound like just a snippet that's in TikTok? TikTok is what's breaking new music right now. Record labels don't just care about, can you give me one good song and I can do something with that? Now it's just, can you fit me inside of a TikTok and get me streams? Because while it's not a great revenue stream, It's the leading revenue stream right now. You're absolutely right that TikTok is breaking new music, but this article also mentions it does the old fogey thing about music not being as good. There's a lot going on in the world today. That sounds like a song lyric, but there aren't many artists talking about what's going on in the world today. Most of the artists are talking about distractions, or it's not like the Vietnam era where music was leading a rebellion. People are not going to music for that right now. Music is reciprocating that because they're not providing generational artists and storytellers that are doing so.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like music is equipped to do that.
Walk me through this.
Music
then.
used to be. And to say that it's not would be to turn a blind eye to its history. Music was always pushing it. Just for whatever reason, in this generation, it's not.
It's mostly apolitical pop stars that like don't want to get on the wrong side of Spotify, essentially.
Maybe all the music's been done. Maybe we ran out of music.
Wow.
Like Jimmy Walker.
This is why this brings us to our musical, which is why it's being released in part to save music.
That did not come on the wheel. It's not time to talk about the musical.
But the reason why is I need new music to come back, and I did so.
You're going to bring it back.
By putting a hand in the dirt and writing original music as a part of this drop that comes out.
Not on the wheel, not what we're talking about.
This musical is going to crush it in 18 months. Give it 18
100%.
months, and then we're old music, and we are going to
I want my
chart
Grammy.
all the way at the top, baby.
Walk me through this part of it. I would assume that the 5% of new music you speak of that is breaking is the Nicki Minaj's, the Travis Scott's, the pop stars, whoever it is, the rap stars.
Nicki Minaj. That was the last release she had.
Okay. Okay, forgive me. Cardi B then.
Let's see. Let's keep you pushing this one out, Dan.
I don't want to do this anymore. I'm feeling terrible and vulnerable.
Because I think we're about 3 guesses away from you saying Queen Latifah.
Bruno Mars. So tell me, though, because I'm not listening. I don't care about Migos. I don't care about Travis Scott.
His I love that his idea of pop culture is from 3 years ago. It's just everybody that was hot 3 years ago.
Who's hot now?
Say Dua Lipa, Dan.
Yeah, say Dua Lipa.
How about
Casey Musgraves.
How about Kanye?
I will say,
Yes,
look,
yeah,
I don't want to make you feel bad because I'm looking at the tops of festivals now that have new artists, and I'm like, who is this person? Why is this person on like sub-headliner status? And then I check the TikTok metrics, and they absolutely blew up on TikTok. If you look at the top 10 albums in the country right now, they're going to be, I would venture to say, maybe the majority of the names on the top 10 album charts that you don't know. And that's
I clearly don't know.
Yeah.
I clearly don't know any of them.
Mike, tell us who like the top 10 charting artists are right now, and we'll see if this room or Dan has ever heard of any of them.
That's a great idea. Let me bring up the Billboard Hot 100 right now.
So
Which
should
is,
we
Also,
be
I will
releasing
say-
on TikTok then, not on a
100
podcast?
I'll do a TikTok dance to all of our musical songs. That'll get us to the top. People will get to make
All right,
fun of me
so-
dancing, and the music will be up there. But
wow,
like,
look at this. This is actually an interesting case study because TikTok, Glass Animals, Heat
That's a big
Waves.
TikTok song.
It's a massive TikTok
Yeah.
song. It's also a super old song. I think that song is 2 years old now.
Oh my God,
Heat Waves.
ancient.
Yeah,
Wow.
we don't
2
talk
years
about
ago.
Bruno, but it's the number 2. It's how The Weeknd had the
That
number
was
1 album in the
before
country.
the first season of Love Is Blind. Like, what even was 2 years ago?
Yeah, we don't talk about Bruno as number 1 in the country right now. Do you know what that's from?
No.
It's from the Disney musical.
Oh,
Yeah.
also all over TikTok.
Encanto.
There's an Encanto like whole TikTok thing right now. People
So
singing.
Glass Animals have been around for a while. I'm not going to put you on the spot. Say who are Glass
That
Animals.
song was on FIFA like 3 years
Yeah.
ago.
Adele's number 3, but there's an artist number 4, and I'll be straight up with you. I don't know Gail. There's a song called ABCDEFU.
Oh.
A, B, C, D, E, F, U, and you've never heard that song before?
No, I haven't. 'cause
Really?
I'm not on TikTok.
I'm bummed that we didn't write it.
So this is a huge artist because I can tell they're on sub-headliners and damn near headlining festivals. The Kid Laroi. Kid Laroi is the number 5 song in the country right now. He's a massive artist. His album's in the top 10. I had to educate myself on who the Kid Laroi was last week.
So, I want you to walk me through this like I'm your grandfather, because rock and roll has died. The spirit of that you're talking about no longer exists. You cannot. We're not making new rock and roll bands. And my era, longing for the 90s rapper that was part of the halftime show, clearly I'm not on TikTok, and clearly I'm not up to date on how new music pops right now. But when you say that people want what they already know, you're telling me that streaming services are serving the demand that radio, Aretha Franklin was demanding she be paid in cash because it was hard to make your way through the through the music industry and have success. You're telling me now that the way for somebody who is not The Weeknd to have a hit song is it has to be through social media. Otherwise, it's not going to catch because young people who make all this stuff popular are not going to be listening on the radio.
It's not just social media, though, because you still can't post videos with music in it, licensed music on like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram. It's just TikTok because TikTok has a licensing agreement with artists that they can use those songs. And then the thought is that one of those songs, like, a Fleetwood Mac song will go viral. It'll make Fleetwood Mac a shit ton of money then on the streaming service when people go and re-download the song and it charts again.
But if you open I just opened the Spotify app, the home section is here's some of your playlists. Then here's more like an artist that you like. Then here's some podcast episodes. Then recently played. Then jump back in, which is stuff that you've already listened to. Your top mixes. And then you get to the state of music today. So you got to scroll down. You have to be actively looking for new songs. So really, it's like stadiums playing songs, and you just have to experience
shows
songs.
like Euphoria breaks a lot of breaks a lot of music the way MTV used to do that. I think the music industry, because of things that you just outlined, they need to own up to the fact that they need to keep this thing going. Otherwise, the well will run dry if they keep going to older music. They need to break some. For me, personally, I was never big into radio. Radio never broke stuff for me. What got me into new music was seeing festivals and familiarizing myself with tracks while pulling out a playlist for going to festivals or this opening band at a concert. That's how I broke new music. So lockdown, for me, got me back into my old ways where I was just revisiting stuff that I knew I loved. In terms of physical music, the number one selling piece of physical music now is vinyl. It replaces CD, which also lends itself to older music. So right now, yes, the answer is old music is killing new music.
But new music is also in some ways broken by ubiquity in that, so you hear a song on the radio, you hear a song in a restaurant, you hear a song at a sports stadium, and then you you piece it together, and here in Miami, I've realized going into other areas of the country, this isn't the case, but a song like Pepas, which is now in every single stadium here, it's kind of like a Miami anthem in a way, but it's because I heard it first at a Canes game, and then I heard it somewhere else, and I was like, oh, okay, but I guess in some ways, culture being limited as a result of the pandemic could reduce the chance that you're in a Target and hearing a song that is popular, or you're in a restaurant, or you're at a stadium, and so the ubiquity of popular music just doesn't really exist anymore.
I also see Axer being booked on SNL because they went viral on TikTok. There's this Italian rock band that has a real catchy song called "I Want to Be Your Slave," but they blew up because of that. Guy has an incredible raspy voice. He's like, "I'm begging you." Yeah. I heard that song years ago. But it blew up on TikTok, and it turned people onto their new single. They actually have a collaboration with Iggy Pop that I like. I think their name is Maneskin. I'm not sure. Yeah, Maneskin. I'm not sure how to pronounce it because they have a little dot on top of the I.
Don't you get to a place where you cannot reach the masses the way that ubiquity or radio did? If everything's on demand and the streaming services are playing to some of what you already know musically, does that not extinguish the ability of new music to get oxygen? To Chris Whittingham's point, if the way to get in your head a song is you have to experience it in a new place, you can't reach the masses that way if everything's on demand and you continue to just choose things that are their specified menu items to your likings. You never have to do much in the way of change or growth if you're not seeking it out.
People don't have the patience to break new music on radio, too. I was surprised to learn that Jack White just had his first #1 radio song in rock radio. It wasn't Seven Nation Army that did it. It's a single off of this new album. At 46, he got his first #1 because even radio is falling into the trap of we're just going to play what's familiar to you guys. And we're going to play those songs 17 times an hour.
And it, like you said, Dan, you're absolutely right. It's really hard where if everything that we have done culturally to tailor television to you with a Netflix algorithm, to tailor music to you with a Spotify algorithm. Even to some extent, like we're talking about TikTok as a venue to break things, but your TikTok is specific to you. Like Jessica will come in, oh, did you see this TikTok? I'm like, no, I didn't, because like 20% of my TikToks are about Formula One. The other 20% are about like nice houses and
But if
and
we were
like
real
travel.
friends,
Like,
we'd have the same For You page, because me and all my girlfriends, we have the exact same For You page. I send them in TikTok, and they're like, I've already seen this. And I'm like, that's because we're the same.
Wow, Whittingham.
You and Jess are the same.
Yeah,
not one of her girlfriends.
You're
I
not one of her
suppose.
I
girlfriends.
thought you were.
Yeah, but Jack White got his first #1. You know how it blew up? You know how Jack White taking me back?
Is it stadiums?
Call of Duty. It was in a Call of Duty commercial, and everyone was like, "Wow, this song is rad!" And people, I guess, called up radio. No one calls up a radio station. I'm not exactly sure, but that's how it got notoriety.
But right, like commercials. If nobody watches commercials anymore, then songs being commercials doesn't mean anything. Like you have
but
to
now
like.
the commercials, like the Burger King commercial that took the song from TikTok and then put it in the Burger King.
Yeah. Oh, there's the Applebee's
this
one as
was
well.
popular 7 months ago. Get this off my TV right now, Burger King.
But I'm looking at the Billboard Hot 100, and like all the TikTok songs, the quote TikTok songs, like "Stay" by the Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber, like that was popular on TikTok like 18 months ago.
Spin the wheel again, Mike Ryan. I want to see if it lands on something else here. It's a good new musical wheel. I thought it would have music on it. I was told by the sellers that it would have music on it. It does not. Jack White naming all those Beatles songs so quickly, just a couple of notes in.
I saw that went viral. I'm not sure if it was on a TikTok. Do I sound old every time that I reference TikTok as something that I'm not on?
You
I'm sorry.
are old in this respect. It's not disputable, is it?
I've never understood the drawing of the line where it's like I'm on every social media platform, but TikTok not for me, Clive. Like it's a really good experience. Like I guess it's because it's owned by and like it's in another country, and like it's something that really young like Gen Zers are doing. It's like no,
but I'm not.
I'm too, like
what is every other? I'm not on everyone. I'm not on Facebook. I have.
Yeah, well, that's because
an-
that's for like 75 plus.
Yeah,
now.
I have an Instagram. I have an
You're too young
Instagram
for Facebook.
and a Twitter, and like I'll peruse a Reddit, but I'm not an active Redditor. I can go weeks without
So
checking. Reddit.
you feel like you're good on your social media, like you got what you need.
Yeah, I do. I fall into that Instagram Reels thing, which I can see how like the TikTok algorithms. But now I'm just watching the same version of Instagram Reels. I'm like, if this is what
TikTok's
TikTok
better.
is, it's terrible.
TikTok is much better. Instagram Reels is like where the leftover TikToks go.
I call it FikTok.
Regardless,
It's fake
I found that Jack White video on Jack White's official Instagram where someone, it had to have been from several years ago because it was many hairstyles ago for Jack White, where they play pretty obscure, if you can call a Beatles song obscure, but obscure Beatles songs, and he instantly recognizes them within 1 second and names the tracks.
It's less than a second, Mike.
It's
a couple of notes.
yeah, well, that's what a second is in music, but regardless, it's thereabouts, and he instantly is able to say it, which is, as I've gotten older, remembering names of songs because of where music is right now, just popping up on your phone, and it's a bit disassociative. It's hard for me to remember names of songs, but I can do it with the White Stripes. I tried that out where someone was playing one note of a White Stripes song, and I failed on one. And it wasn't because I didn't know like every lyric to that song, just the name escaped me. So to be able to have the catalog of just, I can remember the most obscure Beatles songs and label them as soon as I hear a note is crazy memory.
He is the coolest thing to the spirit of the past that we have in music, and I don't know that he's out here doing what Jason Isbell is doing with making statements. But you're right. It's interesting to hear you say that today's artists are interested in sitting it out because they don't want to offend Spotify. So you don't have today's musical artists doing anything by your appraisals. I don't know this to be so, but by your appraisals, we're not getting music that is thoughtful or provocative or making you think about things the way that music used to challenge the establishment and say things because you don't want to offend Spotify.
Well, I mean, and also your audience, but like because the tech platforms are in control of this stuff, like you kind of have to do right by them. But a lot of the artists now are apolitical. I heard a lot about this around the Joe Rogan conversation with Spotify. And, there was kind of a movement towards, well, musicians should get involved and say something. And a lot of the older ones did, but current pop stars, like Drake, not to specifically accuse Drake of something, but don't want to be on a side on the vaccine. Flatly didn't want to do anything. They didn't want to, pressure Spotify. And who knows, maybe even some of them agree with what Joe Rogan was saying. But it was very clearly stated, the music industry currently does not want to be involved in political speech.
I don't know. I mean, maybe the Joe Rogan thing's a bad example because I don't recall too many younger artists coming forward supporting the Neil Young side of it. But like Taylor Swift has been very political about the way that her music has been basically making other people rich, and now she's re-recording all her masters and re-releasing them so that she owns them. And like Lil Nas X has
That's
been,
not political in
no,
how we're meaning political.
She has recently gotten more involved in politics, but like that is taking a stance against the system that is really unfair to creators and artists.
What Whittingham is talking about is through the music, using the music, not using the platform provided by the music to have
that's fair.
a say.
I was going to say my other example though would be Lil Nas X, who's like been very, very pro LGBTQ and like has gotten a ton of backlash for his songs being too provocative when they're just showing him being himself. And people, this like moral panic over him and his music, and that was only like a year ago when the whole
but that's a good
happened.
example though. That is a good example of activism and pushing boundaries. But I hadn't noticed the trend because this is not music that I have access to. To me, my opinion is a very old man opinion of. Man, I just don't like very much of what's being made today. It's formed. I don't like to even say it about myself, but I do find myself longing for the kind of Jack White artist that, or Lenny Kravitz, or just somebody who had a style that said stuff. That said stuff in their music. Has it all been said? Never mind.
What did Lenny Kravitz say to you? That he wanted to fly away?
No, Lenny Kravitz was all style. That's a bad example. I used a bad example with Lenny Kravitz.
He has a CB2 line out now.
Well, he's managed to stay. I was just thinking of sort of individuals of
Remember that time
age.
his pants ripped and everyone saw his dong?
Oh my God, I forgot.
Yeah. Remember that while he was doing his solo? Like he just started shredding as his pants shred. Just all there in all its glory. Remember that? It's one of the greatest images.
Crucified Janet Jackson for the wardrobe malfunction.
Precisely.
What happened to the Janet Jackson lifestyle?
It would have gone a lot better if Janet Jackson was slaying on an axe as that happened. It just would have made for a funnier image.
Really? Would it have been any funnier than the one that you got? Really?
Irrefutably funny. Like it is so funny, the photo of Lenny Kravitz's dong slipping out of his pants. I'm sorry.
You mentioned Janet Jackson, and it made me think she's got a 4-part documentary out, and I would love to see it. It's on Lifetime, though, and I'm assuming it's not getting any buzz because she made it herself, and it doesn't go into any of the interesting stuff that you'd want to hear about with Janet Jackson.
I heard really good things about A&E doing stuff. I know you were talking about We Need to Talk About Bill Cosby documentary, but A&E is apparently doing Secrets of the Playboy Mansion, and a whole bunch of people are being like post-canceled, like posthumously canceled.
Oh, we're entering that age. Jerry Lewis. I really
like Don
was.
Cornelius is an awful person in this documentary.
Jerry Lewis. I saw a Me Too story on Jerry Lewis in Vanity Fair that was quoting 87-year-old victims talking about something like this for the first time. There's going to be a whole lot of this, right? Because we're going back and correcting bad behavior that at the time was just sort of the accepted weird.
You might find this shocking, but the behavior at Playboy parties seemed to have crossed lines.
Stugotz, there was a good story in Sports Illustrated, a WNBA story, and women have been fighting so hard. And that league, women have been fighting so hard. You've seen them become leaders in our country. You saw the Atlanta Dream of Renee Montgomery help swing Georgia. They were pioneers. And this story in Sports Illustrated by Howard Megdal, where he is writing about the New York Liberty being fined by the league for chartering flights when these women pioneers, and I know many of you listening to this, you saw perhaps the story this week that the United States women's soccer team had won $24 million in a settlement. the U.S. men's soccer team is to the women's soccer team what the WNBA has been to the NBA. Something of an afterthought publicly as the league has supported it, but these are very strong women, and they are now fighting for equal rights. Howard, you've seen in the last 10 years how much strength there is in this league. You love covering this league. You're the founder, editor of the Next Women's Basketball Newsroom and the 9 Women's Sports Newsletter, and this story for Sports Illustrated is an important one, so thank you for writing it, and thank you for joining us. But can you tell the audience, for the unfamiliar, what it is you wrote and the nature of the controversy?
I very much appreciate it, and thanks for the essence of this story is trying to figure out, both at the league level and at the ownership level, how fast to grow. You're right to put it in the context of an unprecedented level of investment in women's sports, but to put it simply, the players have wanted charter flights for a very long time. There are elements within the league that are concerned that that is a cost they're not yet able to bear. It's not in the most recent CBA, which did offer significant growth in salaries and other areas for the players, and was signed in January of 2020. The New York Liberty took it on their own initiative to charter flights in the second half of last season, which runs afoul of the CBA, though not the spirit of growth of the league. And the league responded with ultimately a $500,000 fine over the Liberty making this unilateral choice.
And how are the athletes in this sport rubbing up against some things here that this ownership group is willing to do, but other ownership groups are not prepared to do? Because why is this the only team where the owner is deciding, no, they're going to fly by charter? I demand it.
Well, it's more complicated than that, really. There are other owners who would support the idea of charter flights. But even among that group of owners, there was consternation over the Liberty doing this effectively in secret and by themselves. Now, that said, Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, has a very difficult challenge, right? She has to navigate some owners who are either unwilling or unable to spend at a level that would fully support the kind of growth that a lot of people believe the W is capable of. There are those who want to grow as fast as she does, and there are those who want to go faster than she does. And so trying to make sure that you corral those three groups into a coherent structure going forward is a difficult thing, and this is certainly evidence of that.
So part of your reporting was about the differences in the types of WNBA owners and how there are some very progressive owners like the Liberty's owners, and then there are some who just consider their WNBA teams as, you know, tax write-offs basically, and aren't willing to invest money in it. So how does that conflict shape the then CBA, which does dictate things like league travel?
It shapes everything, right? That's such a great question, because it comes back to, how do you get a majority of owners? How do you get the owners as a whole on board for whatever growth you need to do? There's an added element to it as well, which is that the owners of the WNBA teams represent a part of ownership. The NBA, until the recent investment, owned 50% of the WNBA. And so the NBA owners, many of whom do not also have a WNBA team, have a limited stake, quite frankly, in whether the league gains or loses money in a given year. Now, that investment is a little further diluted because of the new investors that make up just over 16% of the overall league ownership structure. The WNBA owners have about 42%, and the NBA owners have about 42% as well. But it means getting a lot of stakeholders on board to do anything. And you can imagine how difficult that is if you've ever tried to order pizza in a large group of people. Well, this is a lot harder than ordering pizza.
So do the new investors, the 16%, do they have any vote or any say in when the next collective bargaining agreement gets negotiated?
They don't, but they will, in fact, be able to share in the profits that come down for the league. And so there's a useful element to that, obviously. If the league is able to grow faster, you would certainly imagine that they would be happier to do it. On the other hand, if you invest and then the lead goes too fast and those are losses, well, you might have some consternation. So it is another, effectively a constituency for the league to answer to.
So there was one other thing in your story about how the Liberty's owners were able to find a way to get chartered flights for the entire league for 3 years in the last negotiation, and then that was stricken down. Can you explain what happened with that situation?
Sure. And just to be clear about it, it was not an official proposal. What happened was at a September meeting, the Liberty floated that idea of, listen, we think we can do this, but it didn't get far enough, in part because there's not enough owners who are willing to go that charter route for it to become something that was formally presented. And the league, in fact, made it clear, that this has still not been formally presented. The Liberty, for their part, believe this would be very possible. Whether or not there is that possibility, and whether or not, even if there is that possibility, there are owners who might want to have it happen anyway, is an open question. There are owners who are concerned and expressed this concern at that meeting that once you go there, there's no going back. And I think there is an element of truth to that as well.
Howard, walk me through some of the economics here, please. This league lost money for a long time. The NBA built the business. It was very expensive to build the business. How profitable is the business now? What is the money we're fighting over? How hard is it to get chartered flights? And never mind treating this kind of travel humanely, just the business economics of what we're talking about here. Is that league profitable and successful enough that the women should just be flying by charter because it's a cost that must be endured by a business that is making money?
I would frame it a little bit differently, by which I would say there are a ton of loss leader choices made in men's sports every single day. And so the question is less about, well, is the revenue there today to pay for it today? And more a question of, what would doing this free up? What would doing this allow you in terms of keeping players here, keeping players from overseas? What would doing this today allow for you as a league to be able to accomplish? And so I don't think it's a useful thing to frame it purely in those terms. Now, that said, there are teams that are profitable. There are teams that are operating at a loss. There are teams that are capable of operating at a loss now and are doing so while investing in the future, looking at long-term potential growth. The best way to think about women's sports as a whole, and the WNBA is no different, is that it is a developing economy rather than a developed economy. And you're seeing a lot of that in NWSL as well. You're seeing teams that are making decisions like the Kansas City Current, who are building their own women's soccer specific stadium. They're not sitting there, and the Lawns are not sitting there, the owners in Kansas City, saying, well, do we have the ticket revenue today to go pay for that stadium? And they're saying, we're going to invest, build this stadium, because over the long term, having and controlling our own venue is going to be critical to our long-term growth. And so truly, charter flights are in that bucket in the eyes of many, and to my mind as well, when it comes to figuring out how and whether the WNBA is able to afford it.
So one thing you mentioned is the overseas players, and how might that change in the next couple of years with some of the new CBA players reporting late things that you reported on?
It's vital, because what we are seeing as part of the CBA is a sunsetting of what the players have long been able to do, which is to say, play overseas, report late, missing all of training camp, sometimes missing a couple of games at the start of the season. Essentially, a lot of players were utilizing the European leagues as their main paycheck, and rightfully so. They were getting paid significantly more to do so, and then coming over to the WNBA when that was all done. Part of the increase in salaries came with that trade-off, a sunsetting of the ability to do so. Now, the question is more, can the WNBA, over this next period of time, make it worth their while for the players to prioritize the WNBA? And those are going to be questions that, again, are more complicated, right? It's not just, well, European team X is going to pay more money, so they're going to be the priority. There's building your brand in the United States. I was talking to Brianna Stewart about this a few weeks ago. She has a shoe deal. Well, that shoe deal is in part dependent on making sure that she has an American brand here. Now, Brianna Stewart is a name that's already built. What about a player who's coming right out of college? How does she build her brand? Well, she's done it in part by being a star in the WNBA. So a lot of these things are interlocked in ways that I think people are only starting to unpack.
You brought up Brianna Stewart. I mean, she's definitely playing for the Liberty after this year, right? Can you report that?
I cannot report that she is definitely playing for the Liberty, but she is signed to a 1-year deal with the Storm. She is about a 3.5-hour drive from her childhood home in North Syracuse, New York, going to Barclays Center. I think maybe it's 4.5 with traffic. I MapQuested it. And I think it is a very good thing to consider that the New York Liberty will have the cap space and that New York City is the largest market in the WNBA. I'll put it that way.
Feels like a yes, Howard. Howard, do the players have enough leverage here to threaten a work stoppage next time the CBA comes around?
Yeah, it's a great question. CBA is running through 2027. So as far as where the leverage will be by then, think about just how much the change in women's sports we've seen over the last couple of years. You go back to 2019, and you brought up women's soccer, and I think it's important that it is framed in that way. Well, in 2019, Megan Rapinoe's team, a majority share of that team was sold in NWSL for $3.51 million. Less than 3 years later, the Washington Spirit was sold for $35 million. So you're seeing this type of exponential growth. In 2019, Megan Rapinoe's name was mispronounced at the City Hall ceremony honoring the 2019 World Cup champions. I was there. I remember cringing at the time it happened. Now, in 2022, we're seeing the women's national team successfully win equal pay along with back pay. So things change so fast, it's very hard to say, but I'll give you one other thing to be on the lookout for. Next couple of years, the ESPN deal for being the primary carrier of WNBA games comes up. The WNBA's media rights deal is, in the eyes of many, comically undervalued, even relative to things like Major League Soccer. Let's see where that number is, because for a lot of these teams, the freedom to be able to invest is going to come with where that money comes off the top, in much the same way you see it across men's sports.
Howard, we're going to see whether the streaming companies see what ESPN saw, which is, wait a minute, I could just put college basketball on. It's a great business model. Like, we'll see that TV contract, if they're giving games, and live sports is the only thing that moves the streaming needle. It makes people stop. Live sports, nothing else is like that. If somebody figures out how to monetize the WNBA in a TV deal, all of the money here changes by leaps and bounds.
It's enormous. And by the way, not only is it live sports, but during a time that we've seen a lot of ratings go down, WNBA ratings keep going up. So you're not even just buying into live sports, which is, as you said very accurately, the most valuable commodity, but the one thing visually right now that seems to be increasing in viewership.
How ridiculous would it have been for the WNBA to terminate the Liberty over this chartered flight fiasco?
I don't know. How do you put a percentage on that? There's only 100% of anything. So let's say 100%. Ridiculous.
Okay, 100%.
You are wrong. There's 110%, Howard.
Yes, Howard, you're wrong. You're so wrong. You don't
Not
understand.
what Homer at the bat taught me.
Yes, this is why you'll never be Stugotz, sir. You're a math idiot. Howard, thank you for being on with us. Tell the people, please, if they want more information on what it is you're doing with the Next Women's Basketball Newsroom and the 9 Women's Sports newsletter, how they can find you.
Thank you. Go to thenexthoops.com. I've got an amazing team covering women's basketball at every level, 24/7, 365. All of subscriber money goes to support that young, ambitious group. The 9 is across 6 different women's sports, THEIXnewsletter.com, and you can support that amazing group of people as well. I absolutely adore them, and we're doing the work. We're making sure people know you can cover women's sports all the time. It does not and should not be an afterthought.
Howard, excellent work, sir. Sports Illustrated is where the story is. Thank you.
Thank you.